Veterans Day is right around the corner, so today we're going to talk about America's costliest war, the Civil War. When you think of the American Civil War, what comes to mind? For most of you, it's probably the decisive battles. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, Chancellorsville, Virginia. While fighting was raging in the East, an often undiscussed portion of the war was occurring in the Southwest. Today, it is known as the New Mexico Campaign. First, a little background. When the Civil War broke out in 1861, the United States was in the midst of expanding westward. By 1853, all the land we today know as the Western United States was acquired through purchases, treaties, or territorial gains through the Mexican-American War. Both Yankees and Southerners were amongst those seeking opportunities out west. When the South seceded in 1861, this led to varying sympathies throughout the region. Among the most vocal Confederate sympathizers were those in the southern portion of the territory of New Mexico. Many had migrated from southern states and felt ignored by the territorial government set up north in Santa Fe. When Union troops pulled out of the region at the start of the Civil War, the residents felt completely abandoned. At conventions in Tucson and Mesilla, they voted to join the Confederacy in March of 1861. They knew their decision would not be without consequence, so they started forming militias to defend their territory. At the same time, a Texas colonel named John Baylor had formed a regiment known as the 2nd Texas Mounted Rifles. On July 25, 1861, the Mounted Rifles overran Union forces at Mesilla, New Mexico. On August 1st, Baylor declared the establishment of the Confederate Arizona Territory. This comprised the southern half of what was then the New Mexico Territory. He also decided to declare himself governor. By the way, if Baylor's name sounds familiar to you, Baylor University is named after his uncle. But back to New Mexico. Following the victory, the Confederate government hatched a plan to utilize their new western territory. General Henry Hopkins Sibley proposed a plan to Confederate President Jefferson Davis. It was to attack the Union Army all the way up the Rockies to Fort Laramie, the most vital garrison on the Oregon Trail. So why did the Confederates bother messing around in the West when they had so much stuff going on back at home? Well, compared to their Union counterparts, they were extremely poor and poorly equipped. Colorado's gold fields and the ports of California were extremely enticing monetarily. So on December 20th, General Sibley issued a proclamation to all those living in the Union-controlled New Mexico Territory. To sum it up, join the Confederacy or prepare to die. 2 months later, Sibley and his men started their march up the Rio Grande. He knew that to keep on going, he had to capture Fort Craig, a Union stronghold of 3,800 men. Sibley knew that he could not take the fort head-on. So Sibley and his men set up camp east of the fort and tried to bring the Union to them. The Union forces advanced up the hill toward the Confederates, but retreated due to heavy artillery fire. The next day, Sibley attempted to outflank the Union. He moved his men to Valverde Ford, with the same results. Union advance, Union retreat. Despite the small victories, as fighting dragged on, the fatal flaw in Sibley's plan was revealed. His campaign was built upon having a mobile force, living off the land, and raiding Union camps. With only 3 days of rations remaining, Sibley gave up on the fort and headed to Santa Fe. He had hopes of resupplying there, and hopefully cutting off Union supplies and communications back at Fort Craig. But due to the loss of their horses and supplies back at Valverde, their advance was slowed, and they captured very little in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. In the meantime, Colonel John Slow of Colorado brought reinforcements down to Fort Union, 94 miles north of Santa Fe. In late March, with 1,300 men by his side, he marched in pursuit of the Confederates. The opposing forces met at the Battle of Glorieta Pass, the decisive battle of the New Mexico Campaign. Through a series of strategic maneuvers, the Confederates held the advantage for most of the battle. This all changed when a group of Union soldiers came across the supply wagons of the Confederates. They destroyed all 80 of them and either killed or dispersed all of their horses. Resourceless, the Confederates fled back to Santa Fe and later to San Antonio, Texas. This marked the end of the Confederate pursuit of the West.